And indeed, we will be giving you ongoing coverage of the launch of the SGR, and that's set to take place on Wednesday. For now, though, let's turn to some other news. Despite the idyllic setting, this year's G7 summit has been one of the most difficult. Members are divided on a range of issues from climate change to trade. One of the few successes of the meeting is capacity building in Africa. Now, leaders from 5 African nations, Ethiopia, Kenya, Nigeria, Niger and Tunisia, were invited to the G7. CGTN spoke exclusively with the Special Envoy of the Ethiopian Prime Minister, Berhane Gebre-Christos.
Despite the idyllic surroundings, this year's G7 summit was one of the most difficult. Divisions came on a whole range of issues from climate change to trade. But capacity building in Africa was one of the few successes. Leaders of 5 African nations, Ethiopia, Kenya, Nigeria, Niger and Tunisia were invited to the G7 for talks. CGTN spoke exclusively with Berhane Gebre-Christos, the Special Envoy of the Prime Minister of Ethiopia.
The focus was on Africa, on innovation. What real sort of concrete steps or measures or declarations did the G7 leaders make?
I think there is realization today in Europe that a solution to migration is rapid growth, rapid development in the continent. Definitely the continent has been changing. I mean, it is changing. That needs to be understood. And it's not going to be a philanthropic type of relationship because definitely Africa, there is a lot that Africa can offer. This is a continent with huge natural resources. This is a continent that's endowed with young people.
Do you think that there was a kind of understanding from the G7 that that's the approach that they need to take?
I think there is a realization that for self-interest on everybody, that Africa is very important. So I think the views in Europe, in Asia, in Americas and everywhere has been changing towards Africa. And definitely it will change in the near future completely. But in terms of investment, more it's going to be discussed in the G20 format with the compact with Africa. And we're expecting that something concrete will come out of it.
So far, what sort of examples are there of world economies putting their money and their efforts into Africa? What sort of investments are there already?
There are concrete things that have happened. Not large ones, not big ones, not overwhelming Africa, but there are activities that have been done over the years. What we need to do is we need to take the best examples and scale them up to the entire continent. Today, Africa is not without a plan. In Africa, we have a plan for what would happen in Africa in 50 years' time. We call it Agenda 2063. This is a continent that's going to push world growth in the 21st century. This is Africa's century. The 21st century is Africa's century.